Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So now you know how to handle table row selection, but what about deletion? How can we delete a row from a table view? This is a common question when building a table-based app. Select, delete, update, and insert are the basic operations when dealing with data, okay? We've discussed how to select a table row. Let's talk about deletion in this lesson. In addition, we'll go through a couple of new features to the Cafegram app, such as adding a custom action button when a user swipes horizontally in a table row. This is usually known as swipe for more action, okay? Also adding a social sharing button that enables users to share the cafes on social networks. There is a lot to learn in this lesson, but it's gonna be very fun and rewarding, okay? So if you're ready now, let's get started. Okay, before jumping into the coding part, I would like to give you an introduction of Model View Controller MVC model, which is one of the most quoted design patterns for user interface programming. You can't avoid from learning Model View Controller, especially if your goal is to build great apps or become a competent programmer. MVC is not a concept that applies to iOS programming only. You may have heard of it if you've studied other programming languages such as Java or Ruby, okay? It's a powerful design pattern used in designing software applications, whether it's a mobile app and a web app. No matter which programming language you learn, one important concept that you need to know is separation of concerns, okay? The concept is pretty simple. Here, the concerns are different aspects of software functionality. This concept encourages developers to break a complicated feature or program into several areas of concern such that each area has its own responsibility. Okay? The delegate pattern that we explained in the earlier videos is one of the examples of separation of concerns, okay? The MVC concept is another example of separation of concerns. The core idea behind MVC is to separate a user interface into three areas, and each area is responsible for a particular functionality. As the name suggests, MVC breaks a user interface into three parts. The first one is the model. A model is responsible for holding the data or any operations on the data. The model can be as simple as an array object that stores the table data. Add, update, and delete are examples of the operations. The second part is the view. A view manages the visual display of information. For example, UI table view displays data in a list format. And finally, the third part is the controller. A controller is the bridge between the model and the view. It translates the user interaction from the view into the appropriate action to be performed in the model, okay? For instance, the user taps the delete button in the view. Consequently, the controller triggers a delete operation in the model, okay? Once finished, the model requests the view to refresh itself so as to reflect the update of the data model. To help you better understand MVC, let's use the Cafegram app as an example, okay? The app displays a list of cafes in the table view. If you turn the implementation into a visual illustration, here is how the table data is displayed, okay? So the controller loads data from the model and then asks the view to display data, okay? The cafe names object, which is an array, is the model. Each table row maps to an element of the cafe names array. The UI table view object is the actual view to be seen by a user. It's responsible for all the visuals. The UI table view controller object, which is the controller, acts as the bridge between the table view and the data model, okay? It manages the table view and is responsible to load the data from the model. I hope you now have a better understanding of MVC. Okay, let's move on to the coding part and see how we can delete a row from a table view. We'll continue to develop the Cafegram app, so you can fire up Xcode and open this project again. In iOS app, users normally swipe horizontally across a table row to reveal the delete button. Earlier, we have adopted the UI table view data source protocol, so you will find a method called commit for row @. This is the method that handles the deletion and insertion of a specific row. Okay? To enable the swipe to delete feature of a table view, all you need to do is implement this method. Okay? If the method exists, the table view will automatically display a delete button when the user swipes across a row. So right now we are going to add the following code to the cafe table view controller.swift file here, okay, and put the code inside the cafe table view controller class. Okay, you can leave it blank, and now we are going to have a quick test. Run the app on the iPhone X simulator. Though the method is currently without any implementation, you should see the delete button when sweeping across a row, okay? Like this. If the delete button is functional, you can either tap the delete button or continue to swipe to the left edge to remove the item, okay? Okay, now the next thing is to implement the method and write the code for removing the actual table data, okay? From the method declaration, the index path parameter contains the row number of the cell which is about to delete. You can make use of this information to remove the corresponding element from the data arrays. Okay, in the Cafegram app, the cafe names, cafe locations, cafe types, and cafe visited are the data model. Okay, obviously we have to remove the data of the selected cafe from all of the arrays. To remove an item from an array, you can simply call the remove at method of the array object. So update the method with the code below. If editing style is equal to the delete state, thus delete the row from the data source. The remove at method expects an integer. So when we put indexPad.row, actually we give an integer as it is the position in the index of the object. Okay. We are going to repeat this thing for all the arrays. Okay. IndexPad.row. Okay. Like this. Okay, perfect. The method supports two types of editing styles, insert and delete. Because we only remove the data when the user taps the delete button, we first check editing style here. before executing the code block. Okay, now run and test your app again. Okay, the app doesn't work as expected. When you tap the delete button, the cell is not removed. You may think that the data wasn't removed properly. Let's do some debugging here. Insert the following lines of code before the end of the method to print out the content of the array. Okay, so here print total item cafe name dot count, for example. Okay, and then for name in cafe name print name. Okay, in Swift you use the print method to output a message to the console. Printing the content of a variable is a very basic way of debugging. The above code prints the total number of items in the cafe names array and its content after the cell deletion. Okay, by default the console is hidden in Xcode. Go up to the Xcode menu, select View, Debug Area, and activate Console to bring up the console. Okay, like this. Now compile and run the app again. We are going to delete a row from the table view. Okay, and I'm going to delete the first row. Okay, for instance, and here, as you can see, you will find the output in the console under the debug area. At first we have 17 cafe items in the array. After deleting a row, the first row, the number reduces to 16, and from the output Berkeley Cafe was deleted completely. Okay, here, as you can see, the app actually deletes the item from the arrays. It looks like the view doesn't show the update. Yes, that's true. We only removed the data from the model but haven't notified the table view to update its content. Okay, one way to ask the view to reload its content is by calling the reload data method. Okay, so insert a line of code in the method to reload the data in the table view. Here, for instance, when the reload data method is called, the table view clears its content and reload the current data from the cafe arrays to display. Okay, now compile and test the app again. When you delete a cafe, the table row should be removed. Okay, the app works, but there is a better way to refresh the table view. Consider that we only need to delete a single row. Why don't we just remove that particular row from the table view? You are allowed to use a method called delete rows at to delete a specific row or multiple rows from the table view. Replace the reload data method with the following line of code. Okay, so here it expects an array, so you're just going to press enter. Okay, and here index path is the type. Okay, and our index path is here, so we are just going to change the I letter like this and it works perfectly. Okay, and here press point and you are going to have the different styles. Okay, the delete rows at method takes in two parameters, an array of index path and the animation type. Here we just pass the method with the current index path and specify to use the fade animation, okay, like this. The animation type indicates how the deletion is to be animated. Fade animation is commonly used. Optionally, you can change it to other animations such as right, left, and top. Compile and run the app again. When you confirm to delete a record, the row fades out of the table view, okay? Like this. Perfect. Okay, before moving on, remove the whole method commit for row at, okay? This one. Cool. We no longer need this method. Instead, we will implement something new to replace it, okay? In iOS 11, Apple introduces two new methods for handling swipe actions in table view cells. Leading swipe actions configuration for row at and trailing swipe actions configuration for row at, okay? Both methods are defined in UI table view delegate. The first method is designed for handling swipe to right actions, while the second one is for swipe to left actions, okay? Now let's implement the second method in order to recreate the delete function, plus adding a share button. Insert the following method in Cafe Table View Controller, okay? So trailing swipe actions, okay, configuration for row at here. And we are going to recreate this delete action. So let delete action equal UI contextual action, open the parentheses like this, choose this one. The style will be destructive, the title is delete simply, and just press in this on this blue area like this, okay? So this handler needs 3 parameters to be effective. So the first one is an action, okay, so this one. Then it needs a view, and finally a completion handler like this to quit the handler. I will explain you that later, okay? And finally we're going to write our code again. So delete the row from data source self cafe, okay? Just repeat that for all the arrays, okay, like before. Types like this, and finally the last one, cafe images. Next path dot row, okay, cool. I have written the same code that we wrote in the previous method commit for row at, okay? And here we are going to call a completion handler to dismiss the action button. Okay, so you just write completion handler, open parentheses, and you just write into it true. Cool. Now we are also going to create another action, the share action button. Okay, like this. So you use UI contextual action again, and this time the style will be normal, the title will be share. Okay, and just press enter again for the handler like this. So we need again an action, a source view, and completion handler like this. Cool. Now we're going to create a text that will be displayed into the share action. Okay, so just check in at space plus self.cafe names bracket indexpad.row. Okay, like this. Also an object activity controller, let activity controller equal UI activity view controller like this. Okay, and here again it expects an array. Okay, so you're just going to press enter, and here we're going to bring this object. Okay, like this. And application activities, just write nil, we don't need it. Okay, then we are going to present like this the controller. Okay, activity controller, the animation will be true and completion will be nil. Okay, and finally just write again completion handler true like this. And once we have our both action, delete action and share action, we are going to create a swipe configuration object to display them. Okay, so swipe, let's swipe configuration equal UI swipe actions configuration like this. And here again it expects an array, so just press enter, and here we're going to write our both actions like this. Perfect. And as this method is returning an object, something to be returned, okay, we are going to write return swipe configuration. Okay, perfect. The usage of UI contextual action is very similar to that of UI alert action. You specify the title, the style, and the block of code to execute when a user taps the button. In this example, we have two contextual actions, one for delete and another for share. Okay, to create the delete action, we instantiate a UI contextual action object with the title delete and destructive style, indicating that the button should be in red. Okay, we also provide the code block to run after the delete action is selected. Okay, here after the delete action is selected. Okay, the code in the code block is the same as the one we wrote earlier, except that it has an additional line of code that calls completion handler here. Okay, After you successfully complete the action, you have to call this method to dismiss the action button. Okay, true indicates that the delete action has been performed. Okay, next we create the share action using UI contextual action with normal, style, and title share. Okay, if the style is set to destructive, the button's background color will be set to gray by default. When a user taps the button, it brings up an activity controller for social sharing. Okay, cool. The UI activity view controller here class is a standard view controller that provides several standard services such as copying items to the clipboard, sharing content to social media sites, sending items via messages, etc. Okay, the class is very simple to use. Let's say you have a message for sharing. All you need to do is create an instance of UI activity controller with the message object and then present the controller on the screen. This is what we have done in the above code snippet. Okay, and the last two lines of the code are probably the most important part. Okay, it returns a UI swipe actions configuration objects with an array of UI contextual action objects. Okay, telling the table view to create the buttons when someone swipes left the cell. We're going to compile and run the app. Okay, swipe across a table row and it'll show you both share and delete buttons. Okay, cool. Tapping the share button will bring up a share menu like the one shown here. Okay, in the simulator. In the simulator, you can only find a few options such as copying items to the pasteboards and save to files. If the app is run on a real device, the share menu will offer more applications. Okay, Apple allows developers to define custom services that appear in the share menu. The available items vary from device to device depending on the apps installed. Okay, the UI activity view controller class doesn't limit you from sharing content in text format. Okay, so I'm going to show you something. If we copy that and we go in message, here we can paste our cafe and send it to our contact. Okay, like this. Cool. But you can also pass a UI image object during initialization. Your app will allow users to copy images or share them to other applications. Okay, we're going to modify the trailing swipe actions configuration for raw app method to the following. Okay, so first of all, we're going to delete that. Okay, let activity controller to be type of UI activity view controller. Okay, and now if let image to share is equal to UI image like this, cafe images brackets nextpath.row. Okay, then activity controller is equal to UI activity view controller like this. Okay, image to share, okay, nil. Otherwise, or else, activity activity controller is equal to UI activity view controller, but only default text, okay, like this, and here nil again. Cool, perfect. And then okay, we're going to relaunch our simulator. We just modify a few lines of code for share action. We added an image to share object for image sharing. Do you still remember the iflet syntax I covered in my previous video? When loading an image, it's possible that the image is failed to load. This is why the UI image class returns an optional during initialization. In Swift, we use iflet here, iflet, to verify if an optional contains a value or not. If the image can be loaded properly, we pass both default text and image to share to UI activity view controller during initialization. Okay. UI activity view controller will automatically embed the image of the selected cafe when the user chooses to copy the content to pasteboard. Okay, we're going to try it out by selecting copy and then paste it into the built-in messages app. So relaunch the simulator. We're going to copy, and then you just press Command Shift and H to go back home. Okay, and here if I paste, cool, we also have our image with our message, okay, with our default text. Cool. So that means you can share your cafes on social networks and with your contacts. Okay, by default the action buttons are either in red or gray. The UI contextual action class provides a couple of the properties for developers to customize its style, including background color and icon. Okay, so you are going to write this code here. Okay, and also we are going to drag and drop these 4 icons into the assets catalog. Okay, like this. Cool. So we set the background color property to change its background color, and the image property to add an icon. This is the first time we work with color programmatically. The UIKit framework provides a UI color class to represent color. Okay, many methods in UIKit require you to provide color using a UI color object. The class comes with a number of standard colors such as blue and red. If you want to use your own color, you can create your own UI color object using RGB component values. The component values should be within 0 and 1 if you're a web designer or have some experience with graphics design. You know that the RGB values are on a scale of 0 to 255. Okay, to confirm with the requirement of UI color, you have to divide each of the component values by 255 when creating a UI color object. Okay, after you made the changes, we're going to test the app again and see if you like the new color. Okay, otherwise modify the color code and change to your preferred color. Okay, pretty awesome, right? Okay, and like me, if you're not a designer, you may need some color inspiration. You can check out Adobe Color CC and flatUIColorPicker.com. You will find a lot of color combinations for designing your app. Okay, cool. Okay, and finally, we need to add the check-in action when the user swipes right the cell. Okay, in the image pack that you downloaded a few minutes ago, you should find an icon image named tick.pdf here, okay, and another named undo.pdf here. We're going to use these images for the check-in action. As it's the same procedure that I showed you in my previous lesson, I'm not going to explain you the whole code, but I'm just going to copy paste it. And just remember that for this action, we called the leading swipe actions configuration for row add method, okay? And now we're going to compile and run the app on our simulator. Okay, and as you can see, you can check and uncheck the row. So right now I'm going to check the row, perfect, and then uncheck it. Cool. We can delete some rows if you want to see. Okay, like this. In this lesson, I showed you how to manage deletion in a table view. I taught you how to create swipe action in table view cells using UI contextual action. You also learned how to use UI activity view controller for implementing a sharing feature. Okay? Our Cafegram app is getting better and better. You should be proud of your achievement so far, guys. Okay? And if you are a programming newbie, it may take you some time to fully understand the material. So if you feel confused, just take a break and grab yourself a coffee. And after the break, go over the lesson again, and probably you will find it easier to digest. And finally, in the next lesson, we'll take a look at something new and create a navigation controller. Okay? So that's all for today, guys. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.